everyone, my name is Evan and I like to make stop-motion dinosaurs and monsters. And in this video today, Ice Titan is on its way, known as the first one, so they say, so Shimo is now on the way. During this YouTube video today, we'll be making Shimo's skeleton, I say, using a combination of oven-baked clay and some armature wire, so they say. We'll also be butchering some Legos along the way to make this stop-motion doll, I do say. However, one could say most of that will be explained in the build rundown today. Anyway, while I make this skeleton today, we'll be learning about this Titan along the way. And if you enjoyed this video today, be sure to smash that like button as hard as a kaiju, as I like to say, because it lets me know that you appreciate all the hard work and effort that goes into making these stop-motion characters. Comment below what you think of the project, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new and have your post notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new videos or updates that I do. Anyway, let's get into these fun facts about Shimo. Some fans of the Monsterverse have known about this mysterious new villain Titan for some time that Kong and Godzilla will be facing off against in this new Empire film. Before the general public, this might be just the first time any of them have seen the monster Shimo. This Mega Titan was teased in the second trailer of Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. However, they kept it fairly concealed and we never got a good look at the beast, which would have been a super exciting thing for us fans to talk about if it wasn't for their decision to reveal the kaiju in the random toy drop back in December, which I honestly had no idea Shimo was a part of that. I can't help but think that there was a council of monkeys in the office that day. And no, I'm not referring to the giant ape pit or Kong pit in the trailer. Either way, it seems like now is a perfect time to talk about this new Titan with the movie being so close to release. So I'm going to talk about everything I've managed to dig up on this monster so far. From this monster's design, its abilities, and her biology. Yeah, you heard me right. It's been loosely confirmed that this new, nemesis of Godzilla is supposed to be a girl. And if you have a problem with that, I would imagine Rexy from Jurassic Park probably has a few bones to pick with you, pun intended. Also, fun fact, she was known as Roberta on the film set. Now, I know a lot of you are probably thinking Shimo doesn't really sound like the most threatening name ever, and there's been some confusion as to whether or not this name actually has some meaning, and I'm happy to say I was able to dig up a few translations. For example, in Japanese, it can translate into one of two meanings, either frost or gray hair, and the first one definitely adds up, because Shimo is a kaiju or titan that has ice powers. However, gray hair doesn't quite add up considering, Shimo is pretty scaly. But I'm assuming it's one of those things that generally has possibly a double meaning behind that name, possibly referring to how old this monster is. Which also happens to suit this monster fairly well because it's rumored it's supposed to be either the first Titan or at least the most ancient thus far. Even in the Swahili language, Shimo means hole or abyss, and those words definitely describe Shimo's first reveal. Now, unfortunately, even with our latest trailer release, we still haven't really gotten the greatest look at this monster. However, thanks to the released merchandise, we have a good idea of what she will look like. And it happens to be very reptilian in appearance. Gives one the impression that Shimo and Godzilla basically developed from a similar family tree. In the overall grand scheme of the Monsterverse evolution, something similar to, Doug. And I definitely know I have a lot of Titanus Doug fans in the crowd. Team Doug! So Shimo, Godzilla, and Titanus Doug could basically be all in the same line. Together, they share many similarities. Thick-bladed hides, spinal protrusions running all the way down the back and tail. And with evolved Godzilla, they both share thagomizers. But Shimo is no Godzilla ripoff. This Titan has some very unique qualities and some special abilities. She also homages some classic kaijus of old, walking on all fours with thick spikes running down her back, including a crown-like adaptation on her head. Kinda makes me think Shimo is a spiritual successor of Toho's monster Angrius. In Godzilla King of the Monsters, we also get a skeleton that fits this description. So perhaps that skeleton that was seen is Shimo's relative. That would be an interesting plot twist. Although Angrius is more like an ankylosaurus in design, whereas Shimo looks more like an ancient crocodile from the Permian period, such as the ancient crocodilomorph Carnifex. Actually, let's give some crocodilomorph some, notoriety. Let me know what your favorite crocodilomorph is in the comments below. Quick description for those who may be unaware of what a crocodilomorph is exactly. Essentially, it's a lot like a crocodile except it walks more upright, the belly does not drag on the ground, and they are much faster. It's probably a good thing they are extinct. They are very lean and full of muscle. Anyway, Anguirus had horns and spikes, whereas Shimo more or less has crystals formed on her back. They also differ vastly in color patterns, whereas Shimo is technically white and blue, and Anguirus is more of a, well, traditional dark charcoal color, for lack of a better term. Now, also in the trailers, we get to witness Shimo's frostbite blast. Similar to Godzilla's atomic breath, however, the difference being Godzilla's atomic breath is very hot in nature, whereas Shimo's is very, very cold. We first witnessed the frostbite blast being used against Kong, and it's so powerful it manages to push Kong back at least a couple hundred feet. Luckily, he blocks it just in time with his axe. Unfortunately, that's not enough to escape all the damage, because within seconds, his entire axe and his arm becomes embedded in ice. Now, obviously, this didn't help out with his previous injury from Scar King, and I think it's safe to assume that's why the Beast Gauntlet was made for Kong. Apart from this frostbite blast being immensely powerful, it looks like it's going to have some other special abilities as well, because in another moment in the trailer, we see Shimo rising from the sea, firing her frostbite blast into the sky, building up to what is likely Shimo's purpose in the movie. However, we don't exactly know what this will affect in the movie just yet. But I think it's safe to say the local vicinity within the film there is probably going to be experiencing a lot of snow and ice. Now, something I'm sure a lot of you really want to know, how big is Shimo? Evolved Godzilla is the largest version that we have seen in the MonsterVerse yet. And even then, he is dwarfed by Shimo. The monster at least has to be 500 feet tall. Now, just imagine this titan rising up on 2 legs. Some of the promotional material for this creature basically instates that it's very much possible. And not gonna lie, the stop motion animator in me is kind of going, oh, that's not gonna be easy. I'm gonna have to use some clever camera angles for that. Now, that all being said, I'm still not entirely sure what Shimo's true purpose is in the movie. What we do know is that she's going to challenge Kong and injure him, and she will arrive in Brazil at some point in the hopes of creating a giant ice storm. And of course, we all know she's going to duke it out with the G-Man. And she's going to be working with the Scar King in some fashion. And of course, the main epic battle seems to be a 2v2, where Scar King versus Kong and Godzilla versus Shimo. So as for right now, no one's really sure on what Shimo's true intentions really are. One thing's for certain, she doesn't seem too pleased with the surface world. Whether by choice or being forced to is the big question. And right now, unfortunately, that's about all we really know on Shimo, because the MonsterVerse seems to be keeping this, well, monster under tight wraps. So I guess we're gonna have to all go see the film in order to actually learn more about this fantastic monster. I'm definitely pumped to go see this film, and I'm sure a lot of you are just as excited as I am. Now, for some of you that may be unaware, I've obviously started streaming here on YouTube, and there's been some interesting theories on there as well, so I'll kind of cover some of the ideas that have been floating around in the chat. Now, first off, it seems like there's a bit of a split audience. Some of you think that Shimo is going to die, which is fairly sad. I don't want to see this creature be destroyed because I think it's really cool. And then some of you seem to think it's going to live. Now, obviously, we don't actually know or have any sort of evidence on this, but we can always kind of have our own little fan theories and be, well, wishful and or not so wishful for whatever the outcome may be for the ending of this monster. Now, obviously, I'm a huge animal lover, and it bothers me to see any sort of animal in distress, and from what I can kind of make out in the trailer, it seems like Shimo is more or less the victim of Scar King, and I would personally really like to see her go against him, because, yeah, no animal deserves any sort of cruelty as far as I'm concerned. Now, obviously, this is a fictional character, but that being said, it seems a little suspicious that she's all chained up, and I don't think anybody really wants that, especially for something this large and ancient. I can imagine it has had a lot of influence on Earth's history. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the film and learning a lot more about this Titan, so that way I can do further dives, because I'm probably not gonna have this thing finished before the film comes out, unfortunately. Maybe I'll have part 2 by then, but not likely finished. However, the one thing I can guarantee for all of you, there will be plenty more interesting MonsterVerse theories and, well, topics coming your way on this fantastic creature. So if you're new here, what better time to subscribe to Moose Motion Animation? And if you're already a subscriber, be sure you have your post notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the live streams, short updates, or videos, because there's a lot more going on this channel at this point. Now it's time for the build rundown. This is the part of the video where I basically go over the tools as well as materials used for the project. We started off with about 2mm thick armature wire. I've basically bumped up the scale for everything on that because, well, all my projects have gotten much bigger, and it seems like these monsters could use the extra support, so why not just step it up a notch is kind of what I figured, and it seems to work a lot better. That's predominantly what legendary Godzilla was made out of as well at the beginning. And obviously a lot of tinfoil was used as well, because I'm trying to keep the weight down as much as possible because Shimo is massive. As you can see, we had to go for pretty much a bird eye view here, and she can't even fully rotate in the studio without bumping into somebody, so she's massive. So the idea there was kind of make the skeleton as big as possible, hoping to save a little bit more weight on clay. And obviously I used a bunch of oven baked clay. Sculpey is the brand I typically use, not sponsor. Works great, you can basically bake that stuff over and over again and it never cracks. A little bit of plasticine clay to make everything stay, and we also butchered some Legos today. Hello everyone, my name is Evan and I like to make stop motion dinosaurs and monsters. And during part 2 of Project Shimo, we'll be finishing off the skeleton, I say, and adding the first layer of clay today. The first order of business in this video, I say, is getting the skeleton out of the way. Then we'll finish off the spikes, I say, which happens to involve a lot of dry brushing, I do say. Then we'll play with the plasticine clay. And as I create this Ice Titan today, we'll be learning more about this fantastic Shimo, I do say. So, my avid kaiju enthusiast, one could say I have a legendary video for you all to see today. As the hype increases to the release date of Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, which will be the latest and 5th entry in the Monsterverse, it only seems right to continue our deep dive on this legendary titan Shimo. And she will be having her first appearance on the big screen this week. So without further suspense, strap on your wetsuits because we're diving into the mysterious world of the Hollow Earth and how Shimo ties into this new film. So, is Shimo the most powerful titan of all time? Now, before I go into my explanation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy this content and want to show your appreciation to how much hard work and effort goes into making these creatures, be sure to smash that like button as hard as a kaiju, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new, because it's just a few small clicks for you, but it means the world to us YouTubers. Unveiling Shimo's origin, tracing the Titan's mythical beginnings. So, first things first, what is the origin of this powerful and legendary Titan? Where did she come from, and what is her role in the upcoming movie? There has been multiple leaks online, and avid Monsterverse fans have been keeping their eyes peeled for hints and information, myself included. The first confirmed existence of Shimo was found through a collaboration in 2022 between the Monsterverse and Call of Duty, in which the creature was depicted battling Godzilla in a cave painting. So according to the various leaks of information about the movie, which are available online, Shimo is the first Titan whose powers created all other Titans. Now, one might wonder, how is that even possible? That's because Shimo might be a kaiju from outer space. That's right, viewers, we're dealing with an alien that possibly has the powers to create monsters like Godzilla and King Kong, along with some other colossal beasts such as King Ghidorah and Mothra. And I think it's safe to say they're monstrous enough to scare anyone's pants off. So I would imagine the mother of all Titans is at a whole nother level in comparison to most of them. Most of the information can be credited to leaked scripts as well as trailers, and from people who attended test screens, who are people just pulled off the streets to attend movies, so that the production team can evaluate and test the response of the movie watchers. These are events where even the popcorn stand attendant gets to be a movie critic. So according to the insight from the test screening and scripts, Shimo might even be a hitchhiker from the red planet Mars. Better move over, Elon Musk. That's right, Mars now has its own kaiju. However, all the information that we do have online, the origins of this mysterious beast have yet to be determined with 100% certainty. I guess we'll just have to wait and see the film. Now onto decoding Shimo's powers and this Titan's formidable abilities. Winter is coming, folks. At least I'm pretty positive winter is coming. I don't think anyone's exactly sure just yet at this point in time. Due to her powers, well, at least the full capabilities of her powers have not been fully revealed yet. But according to online sources, this beast has the ability to control ice and temperature and possibly climate. Because according to the leakers, the previous ice age was the result of Shimo unleashing her icy powers on the world, and then freezing it over, which caused the other titans to be trapped in ice. It is by using this logic the fans have come up with a theory that King Ghidorah, who was found in a popsicle state by Monarch in the 2019 film Godzilla King of the Monsters, was turned into said popsicle by the powers of Shimo. Now, I think it's well known at this point that Shimo has an icy cold breath. And no, I'm not talking about the breath you have after some mints or flavored chewing gum. I'm talking about an icy breath that rivals Godzilla's atomic breath. Shimo's attack is also known as the Frostbite Blast, covered more in part 1. We have all witnessed by now the fire energy beam that comes from Godzilla, which is used to unleash destruction on a massive scale. So if we were to judge the destructive power of Shimo's breath ability, I think it's safe to say she is more than capable of global catastrophes. Because according to the leaked Godzilla lore, she also possesses great durability like Godzilla. So she should be able to take hits like a pro. It does not feel right saying she in that sentence. Anyway, sorry YouTube. Either way, this is terrible news for the human combatants. Also, from what's been hinted at and speculated, Shimo is described as an immense and imposing figure, dwarfing even the most colossal titan in size. Reports and leaked scrolls from the kaiju underworld also suggest that Shimo might be encased in icy armor. The rumor that Shimo holds the title for most powerful kaiju might be not a rumor after all. On to comparative might. Where does Shimo stand amongst legendary titans? Now, all of this is hypothetical at this point. Exact stats and specs have not yet been made public. We already have a vague impression of how powerful she is, along with the abilities that she possesses. So let's take a quick look at some of the powers and skills of comparable kaijus to figure out a power ranking of these magnificent creatures. So first up, we're gonna take a look at one of the most famous kaijus, Godzilla. Now, I'm sure most of us are already familiar with the abilities of this monster. We've seen him take down creatures that are a lot bigger and stronger than he is. However, he's never faced an opponent that could counter his atomic blast. It's definitely going to be one heck of a fight, where the icy breath of Shimo meets the atomic breath of Godzilla. Godzilla is a representation of brute strength and durability. His immense strength and healing capabilities, putting him on top of the apex predators list, earning him the title of King of the Monsters. Next up, King Kong, the king of Hollow Earth itself. Kong is known for his extraordinary agility and intelligence, not to mention his strength, powerful jaws, and his ability to use weapons with deadly precision. Make him a tricky opponent to face in battle. He can use the advantage of the terrain during fights, which definitely makes him one scary foe. And last but definitely not least, we have Scar King, who happens to be the main antagonist for this movie. Scar King has an orangutan-based appearance, with blue eyes, and his booming roar echoes strength, bringing to mind Kong's might. However, Scar King seems to be far more reclusive than Kong, who is comfortable around humans. Scar King, on the other hand, seems to be far more distrusting of them. His rule over the Hollow Earth seems to come at a price as well, because his strategy seems to be ruling with fear, making him a bit of a mystery amongst these titans as well. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how Shimo is going to take on such legendary monsters. Will the mother of the titans, and rumored to be the most powerful titan, fall at the hands of Godzilla and Kong? I personally can't wait to see the answer to this question. What do you think will happen? Let me know in the comments below. Now, let's talk about the future of the Titans, Shimo's role and shaping what comes next. Pun intended. The exact role of Shimo hasn't been confirmed yet. It has been proposed that Shimo is the second antagonist for this film. The fans have been going crazy over the rumors that Scar King, the supposed main antagonist for the film, seems to have complete control over Shimo. So let's spin the rumor mill just a little bit. What does Shimo's role mean for the Titans? Will there be an epic showdown that sends popcorn sales through the roof? Or are we in for a tag team effort, where Godzilla and King Kong become the unlikely duo of the century? Now, one thing I'm hoping to see is Shimo breaking free of those chains and, well, maybe fighting back against Scar King. thus teaming up with Godzilla and King Kong. And well, some of you seem to think that Shimo may or may not actually make it, which we were discussing in some of the live streams. Which also seems like it could be a good possibility, although I personally hope that's not the outcome. Or possibly, in a sudden twist, will the Scar King team up with King Kong and Godzilla? Maybe a reversal role, who knows? One thing's for sure, with Shimo on the scene, the outcome thus far is about as predictable as a roller coaster through a hurricane. And that concludes everything about, well, basically the new empire that I've been able to dig up for Shimo. One thing is definitely certain, I'm excited to see the outcome of this film either way. And I'm definitely looking forward to figuring out how Shimo fits into this whole puzzle, which will obviously be, well, part 3 of Shimo, so stay tuned for more monster fun because Good Friday is on the horizon. Now it's time for the build rundown. We first started off with a little bit of oven-baked clay and some armature wire to basically finish off the spikes as well as skeleton. And Sculpey was the oven-baked clay used. Not sponsored. Then there was a lot of painting. There was some spray painting and a ton of dry brushing, essentially getting that, well, purple rainbow effect that you kind of see in those spikes. I probably spent at least a good 11 to 12 hours, if not more, just working on those. Now, I'll admit my painting skills are kind of subpar, but honestly, they've probably improved quite a lot with this project. I'm surprised how well that actually all turned out, so yeah. Pretty cool. I'm impressed even with myself, and I think a lot of you guys think the spikes are pretty cool if I don't say so myself. Anyway, enough of tooting my own horn. Essentially what you do to dry brush things is essentially use very, very small amounts of paint. Most of it you basically want to actually wipe away on a cloth or a paper towel, and then just use the remnants on the brush and hitting all the high spots, and essentially you can kind of blend things in over time. And I also added the first layer of plasticine clay. But there's plenty more on the way, I do say. Stay tuned for part 3, soon to be on the way. My name is Evan, and I like to make stop-motion dinosaurs and monsters. And in this video today, we'll be finishing off Shimo, I do say. And we'll also be talking about the new empire today. During this YouTube video today, we'll be adding pounds of plasticine clay to finish off this movie monster, I do say. And while I create this stop-motion Shimo today, one could say I'll be doing a movie review along the way. But before I get carried away, I'm happy to say it is spoiler-free, I do say. The Monsterverse continues with its 5th theatrical release, with previous features such as Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong. And now we have Godzilla x Kong, the new empire. Adam Wingard is the director once again, which is actually the first time a Monsterverse film has been helmed by the same creative mind. So it should follow up nicely with the previous film. And depending on your perspective, that can be taken both ways, good or bad. Either way, hype has been building up for the last 2 years since its announcement. And it's all been leading up to this. So, has it been worth it? To which I have to say, if you are sold on the idea of Godzilla teaming up with Kong to fight against other giant kaijus, then you are getting exactly what you bargained for. And once again, this is spoiler-free just in case some of you haven't seen it. I won't be discussing anything that hasn't been already released in the trailers. The new edition of the Monsterverse puts the mighty Kong and the fearsome Godzilla against a colossal deadly threat hidden within the Hollow Earth. Not only does it threaten the existence of their species, but our own as well. And diving into the mysteries of the Hollow Earth, pun intended, as well as Skull Island. This film will explore the ancient Titan battle that brought man and beast together as one. So, how was it? Well, it probably should be mentioned that this is a very Kong-centered movie. He is definitely the main character and is probably in it more than anybody else. And he is the one that goes through the most change, in spite of Godzilla evolving. It is definitely a Kong-centered movie, which is easily the most engaging part of the film. He's definitely more mature than he was in the previous movie. And it's not just because he is sporting a beard now. Basically, he is learning his place in the wider world. But you get the feeling he longs for more, because he's constantly on the alert for others of his own kind. It resembles your classic fairy tale princess story. However, in this case, our princess is a giant monkey. So when we see him encountering other members of his species, like Zuko or the Scar King, it really feels like a big moment for Kong. Something that's been building up since Skull Island. And it definitely pays off. Wingard has taken very careful steps to make sure the non-verbal storytelling aspect is effective as possible. The monsters don't simply speak to one another, it's not that simple. But with their body language and the actions that they perform, you can tell exactly what the Titans are thinking. It definitely gives you the impression that they're not just monsters, but fully developed characters. And that is something that is rarely ever achieved in monster films. So it makes the adventures with Kong very entertaining. About half the film is spent focused on the monsters, so we spend a lot of time getting inside their heads. So in that regard, Kong in the New Empire is the best he's ever been. But what about this new Evo Godzilla? Well, unfortunately, he kind of feels like an afterthought. Which does make sense considering the film was originally developed as Son of Kong. Every now and then the movie would cut back to what he was doing, just to lightly remind you that he is there. He is definitely intimidating as ever though, rampaging through cities causing widespread destruction. So that being said, every moment that he is on screen is definitely great. And the attention to detail is just amazing. I love this new character. However, the movie doesn't really do much with his new evolved form. Power-wise, he's about the same as when he started at the film, and apparently he's not any bigger. So why make him change his form at all? Oh yeah, that's right, to sell toys, which honestly I don't particularly mind because they're still on my shopping list. I need to go get some of those ASAP. But overall, in this film, Godzilla kinda comes across as relatively unimportant, and is just used as a plot device to help, well, fight the bad guys at the end. Speaking of the enemies, the antagonist of the movie, the Scar King, is crazy, literally and figuratively. He is very entertaining to watch just because he's so insane. Mainly because he's just evil and enjoys it. He is definitely that maniacal ruler, and is definitely someone who leads solely through fear. He's actually a pretty complex villain considering the fact that he is not the strongest kaiju in the universe, or the largest, but he's got wit, speed, and numbers on his side, as well as the giant ice titan, Shimo. They did their best to hide this titan in the trailers, but not well enough. And her reveal scene has to be one of the coolest in the Monsterverse, pun intended. There's a lot more to this character than being some cold-hearted ice titan. Sadly, I should mention that Shimo and Scar King weren't actually in the film for very long. In fact, they don't actually show up until halfway. Which personally was really disappointing because I was hoping to see a lot more of these new monsters because when they were on screen, they were absolutely amazing. And it should be mentioned that there are many monsters throughout the film, new and recognizable. And all leave a lasting impression. Personally, some of my favorites were at the beginning with those weird looking dogs that Kong was hunting at the beginning. Those are really cool. But let's talk about the CGI animation. Since that very first trailer, there's been a lot of discussions over whether or not they're good or bad. Now, to be honest, it is a little mixed. Like, for example, all the Hollow Earth stuff looked absolutely amazing. For those sequences, it's almost breathtaking. It's just so cool, especially with some of the camera effects that they're able to pull off with two worlds basically being upside down. However, it does get a little janky when it gets to the surface world. And definitely a step down compared to Godzilla vs. Kong. However, I'm not sure how to put my thumb on it exactly. It looked like the textures were just a little almost faded out. Like it wasn't great because they were in broad daylight. And it definitely should be mentioned, we've never had this much monster action in a Monsterverse film before. It's practically a fully animated film, so naturally I would expect them to have to make a few shortcuts here and there. And it's a sacrifice that I'm personally more than fine with because, well, to tell the truth, I'm usually pretty harsh on CG and I really didn't mind any of it from this film. Just the top surface looked a little strange. The big fact of the matter is, as long as it's engaging and doesn't take you out of it, I'm totally fine with it. Now, obviously, the monsters are a huge part of the film, but what about the part with the humans? And luckily, that's surprisingly good as well. I don't think there was really any boring characters in the film. Easily one of my favorites has to be Trapper. Dan Stevens did an amazing job at this role. And there's definitely this entertaining little bromance between him and Bernie during the film, which I think a lot of you will like if you haven't seen it yet. But one of the ones I was definitely looking forward to the most is Gia, and her acting has definitely improved over the last 3 years. However, it did kind of feel like she was underutilized. Now, don't get me wrong, she is very vital to the story, and like Kong, is a beating heart that gives the film soul. She doesn't really have very many scenes with Kong, which were definitely some of the highlights from the previous film. I was kind of hoping to see their bond grow, but if anything, this film has kind of distanced them, which is a bit sad and feels like a missed opportunity, but overall, I'm definitely very happy with the human cast all around. It's basically like some people going on an adventure, so it's definitely a refreshing change of pace. There is a lot of jokes which made me laugh, but some people who are there for more serious monster content might not appreciate it as much. So what about the story itself? Is it just an excuse to have monster mayhem? Well, both yes and no. The story is very straightforward, but gives us plenty of opportunities for monster action. And there are a lot of contrivances and some pretty shoddy writing. But there is an element of depth with both Gia and Kong that do give it some emotional roots. There are stories of oppression here, and the loss one might feel when taken from their culture, which definitely turns the film into something more than just a dumb monster movie. Now, considering the working title of the film was Origins, it doesn't really feel like I came out of the film knowing more about the history of these kaijus that I basically didn't already know, or various other things that contradicted each other. I just probably found that the most frustrating out of everything in this film. But maybe that's just because I'm a nerd. I was really hoping they would go in depth, but unfortunately not. Now, as far as editing goes, this film is very fast-paced. I did leave the cinema a little overwhelmed. Not entirely sure what to make of it all because so much happened. And upon doing that, I'm guessing they had to either simplify the story or cut scenes, and I'm guessing it was both. And the final fight is kinda shockingly short. And because it's so fast-paced, nothing really stood out. Everything just kinda mushes together like this chaotic finale. And I don't think it's as satisfying as it could have been. Now, with all that being said, Godzilla x Kong is a fantastic adventure from start to finish. With stunning, fantastic new visuals, great characters, and plenty of monster action. And if you are a big MonsterVerse fan, I think this is definitely a movie you should go experience. But it's not without its flaws. Now, overall, I would rate my experience 7.5 Dougs out of 10. And that concludes my movie review for Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. So we're on to the glamour shot, so that leaves me only one question for you, my dear viewer. What did you think of Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire? Did you enjoy it or did you not? Let me know in the comments below. Now, if you've enjoyed this video today, be sure to smash that like button as hard as a kaiju, I do say. It lets me know, as well as the algorithm, that you appreciate all the time and effort that goes into these stop-motion monsters. Or perhaps leave a nice comment below what you think of the project, and share with your monster-loving friends and family. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my new content. I post daily shorts and usually do one video per week, and I now do the occasional live stream. And if you're already a subscriber, I just want you to know I appreciate your support a lot. You're the inspiration for this entire channel, and I hope you all know that. So, thank you very, very much. Now, I probably should mention it's never been a better time to have your post notifications turned on because, well, I'm pretty active on this platform at this point. So, thank you very much once again, my dear viewers. So, hopefully you enjoy these glamour shots as well as this project. And if you're new, be sure to check out part 1 and 2. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end of the video. Be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed the content, comment below what you think, share with your friends, and perhaps consider subscribing if you're new. Anyway, that's enough from me. Till next time, take it easy.